Yeah, but aren't there front office folks, general managers, scouts, and staff saying, what 4-month break?
I had a GM tell me.
You got to be kidding me. I mean, you got the combine is 2 weeks after the draft, after the Super Bowl. The draft is going to stay put, right? Unless you would they screw with
think
that
about
too?
This.
Would they mess with that?
If you're sitting there thinking, and you're the league, and you've done a remarkable job, even in our time covering the league, of taking over more and more parts of the calendar, and you're going, okay, so the players aren't back till the middle of June. There's no OTAs, there's no mini camps. You can't lead, every sports show with like visions of, Drake May getting out there for his first OTA prize. We're not getting that till June. Well, what if we move free agency back? Now, remember, Super Bowl goes to President's Day weekend in the 18-game schedule.
Okay.
You don't want the combine a week after that.
Right.
Well, let's move the combine back to the first or second week of March. Then let's have free agency at the end of March. Then maybe we put the draft in the middle of May. That's the part where all of a sudden that break where you go, okay, I can at least get on board with April, May, June. There's less to do. I can get away then. If you start taking up more and more parts of the calendar, now you're really changing the entire dynamic of things. So again, these are all far down the line types of things. But the 18-game season, I think the fact that Roger Goodell is acknowledging it publicly, the union is certainly, there's new leadership at the union. That's another driving part of this. Lloyd Howell comes from an international business background. He does deals. That's what he's always done. And so because he's coming in kind of and taking a de novo look at the whole CBA, it's like, hey, what's the deal with this? Like, why is this in here? Maybe we should address that. The gambling policy is a perfect example of that, where you remember you had that run of a half dozen players that got suspended. The guys who bet on football, it was a minimum 1 year. But the guys who bet on like an NBA game, but they were in the facility, it was still like 6 weeks. And the thinking was, why, like I can walk out to my car and then it's fine, but because I'm sitting 50 yards this way, it's a violation and I'm missing 6 games. And so they knocked that down. And that was the league and the union working together. This is another situation where it's not like the players want to do this revised offseason in exchange for 18 games. It's not that. It's, hey, let's take a common sense approach to this. Does this really make sense? There's no other sports league that does it. The science doesn't say that this is the best way we could be training players. Why don't we take a look at that? And we'll see whether or not this actually moves forward. I wouldn't be surprised, though, at all if next year we've got a different looking offseason.
And then, so changing that as a springboard to then reconfigure the combine, draft, free agency,
I'm purely
schedule
speculating
release.
on that.
No,
all I know is the league is not going to want to have the quiet,
of course,
quiet
not.
4 months.
But you also have to address the human beings that are grinding it out.
Well, and that's
for
right.
the combine and the draft, and how that has to be addressed as well. Like if you're talking about quality of life as well.
Yeah, no,
I mean, at some
right.
point you can't just there's a stone and there's some blood in it, and you're going to have to figure that part out too. But it also makes sense that if there's going to be such a fallow period where you don't get the
fallow.
Yes, indeed. FALLOW.
Every now and then you got one word I don't know.
There you go.
That was it.
We're a period where nothing's going on.
Got it.
An empty period. Where
it's a farming term, Rich. Left unsown for a period in order to restore its fertility as a part of a crop rotation or to avoid surplus production.
Correct. So you might not have heard that because you were too busy with Jade Monkey on your campus. But long story short, though, is figuring out how to fill that time. Because if they're not going to be, rookies out there in their new uniforms, and for instance, in the next segment, we're going to play a soundbite from Mike McCarthy about Micah Parsons not being there. There's news conferences, there's activity, there's something to talk about, there's headlines to have. So if you're not going to have any of that, you do need to reconfigure that portion of it, and maybe the impetus of that will be having an 18-game schedule. So my question for you is, if we're just, speculating, how old is your daughter right now?
They're 10 and 7.
10 and 7. So your oldest daughter will be how old when all of this happens?
I mean, the off-season part?
All of it?
Turns 11 next June.
Okay.
Dad might be at training camp. Sorry.
Heads up.
Just FYI. That just occurred to me. Every birthday ruined forever? Okay, great. Remember
my oldest son was born on August 5th, which is the number of times I've been in Canton for his birthdays. I've lost track.
Right.
And we I shared this information the other day. Well, we induced Taylor, our last child, our daughter, to avoid kickoff of the 2013 season. At any rate, long story short, is what do you think? 5 years? 7 years? Will she be in college when there's, I'm talking about 18 games? 18 game schedule.
The fact that it's being discussed now makes me believe it's going to happen before the end of the collective bargaining agreement, which is still 7 years out. Because the collective bargaining agreement, as it stands now, says they can't unilaterally go to an 18-game season. So this would have to be a deal. But again, because you have union leadership right now, there's a new union executive director. There's a new president. The executive committee has turned over as well, which kind of guide a lot of these decisions.
Right.
You have new eyeballs on the whole thing, and they're asking different questions than the previous people might have asked. And so, I mean, if I'm putting the over-under, again, and I hope if there is an over-under, I don't want to get in trouble here.
No problem. She in college?
I'm not advising. No chance. It happens before then.
Huh.
I'd be surprised if by the end of this decade, we don't have an 18-game season. There's everybody believes it's an inevitability that it's going to happen. So why delay the inevitable when the inevitable means more money for the generation of players that are playing right now? Health and safety, everybody, defers to that and brings it up. But if there wasn't a tangible difference of 16 to 17 games that would stop them from that, 17 to 18 is probably not going to be a whole lot different. Yes, second bye week to build in rest, potentially reconfiguring the offseason and shortening certain things. Remember, too, when we're talking about this offseason adjustment, potentially, the June and July stuff is going to look a lot like OTAs now, where it's like 3-4 days a week. So you're going to have long weekends. I'm not saying that makes up for it. I had a GM say to me the other day, so if I got a vacation plan next June, from June 15th to June 25th, you were telling me I should cancel that vacation. My response was, well, do you need to be there? Like, first week of strength and conditioning, would you need to be there in April? What are you doing? It's like, well, not a whole lot. I'm normally preparing for the draft. Well, now you're not doing that. Maybe you don't need to be around.
Yeah,
but the real people who will bear the brunt of it are going to be the support people. It's the strength and conditioning staff, the athletic trainers, the football ops people, because if there's players in the building, they all have to be around, and that's going to be part of the conversation as we move forward.
Catch the Rich Eisen Show every single day on the Roku channel, 12 to 3 Eastern, for free.